when the subject of vintage or retro computer gaming comes up, I mean, computer gaming from the 70s and 80s, where it all began, does the Apple II really belong in the conversation? I mean, really? Yeah, I'm really glad you found this channel and you clicked on this video. I feel the need to tell everyone that this is my first YouTube video ever. So I'm a total YouTube rookie. So if you can like and subscribe and do whatever you can do to help me out, that would be much appreciated. A few seconds ago, I asked a question about the Apple II and its significance in the computer gaming world, the vintage computer gaming world, and how much credit it really deserves. And that's really going to be for another video. I'd like to talk a lot more about that because I have a lot to say about that. But for this particular video, so I grew up with the Apple II back in the late 70s, early 80s. And I also had an Atari 2600. But I played the heck out of the Apple II. And I want to talk about 7 or 8 games that are near and dear to my heart for many reasons. A few of them are just great games that we all know and love. A few others maybe you've not even heard of. I'm not sure. I think one is one that is probably the first game I ever remember playing at home. So that's all I want to do in this video is just I'll show off my Apple II collection, give you a sneak preview, maybe another video down the road. I'll go through my whole Apple II game collection. There's about 200 titles. But for this video, I just want to go over 7 or 8 titles that are really near and dear to my heart. And let's get started. So here we have the packaging for Apple Stellar Invaders. Not very exciting looking, but I think it was pre-packaged with maybe an Apple II Plus computer system. Here's some gameplay. Space Invaders clone. 1 player. You could use the keyboard or the paddles. One thing about this game is there was not much scoring. You got 1 point for the first row of aliens, 2 points for the second row of aliens, 3 points for the third row, so on and so on. Very top row gets you 5 whole points. Just a Space Invaders clone, but I certainly played the heck out of it. Let's take a listen to some of these irritating game sounds. So yeah, here's a game I did not own, but it was the start of the Ultima series that we probably all know. A Calabeth World of Doom, released in 1979 for the Apple II, and it was also known as Ultima Zero. I think it took place mainly underground, in the dungeons underground, and it's recognized as one of the earliest known examples of role-playing video games. I did not own this, but I wish I would have. But my first of the Ultima games was Ultima 1, and from there, Ultima 2, 3, 4, and 5. I believe 5 was the final one that was released for the Apple II, but the series did go on in other platforms. Here's the packaging for, well, we'll see packaging for the Ultima 1 and Ultima 2. Packaging was really, really cool. The box art was just stunning. Uh, they came with maps and coins. Obviously not real coins, but uh, made you feel like you were actually a part of the game. That's why they call them role-playing games. Here's some notebook paper, cool notebook paper you could take notes on. I didn't want to use that. The manuals that came with these things were pretty extensive, pretty thick. I mean, look at that. Look at that box artwork. It's just some of the best box artwork I can ever remember. Many of the Ultima games were multiple discs, pretty big sized games. I always liked the felt maps that came with these games, like this one here. I think they came with games Ultima 2 on up. I used to have them hanging all over my walls, but they depicted the world that you explored in Ultima, so they could come in handy. They weren't just art, I guess. Now we'll go into some gameplay. This is gameplay specifically for Ultima 2, but pretty much all the Ultimas were similar. They were above ground and below ground, and even in space. um, there's a significant series in computer gaming history. Games take place for the most part in a world called Britannia. As you can hear, the sounds were pretty basic, like most games. But you could explore these towns, gather gold. You needed food and weapons to survive. It was your typical role-playing game. So here we have Aztec, definitely one of my all-time favorites. Great cover art, simple packaging. Now you probably can't see too well, but those are the keystrokes needed to play this game. There's about 15 of them. Here's some gameplay. Of course, this always reminded me of Indiana Jones. It was an action-adventure game developed for the Apple II, published by Datamost in 1982. The Tomb's levels contains traps, dangerous animals, Aztec guards. I'm not sure what that is. There's the Aztec guards. But you could search and find and equip yourself with like a machete, a pistol, use dynamite. But your goal was to recover the Jade Idol and escape. So not only did you have to recover the idol, but then you had to get the heck out. Aztec generates a random dungeon for each new game. Also different difficulty levels. Basically, the difficulty levels were the aggressiveness of your enemies. So the deeper you went into the dungeon, the harder it became. Great game. Could still play this today. Ah, yes, here we have Choplifter, another great one. So Choplifter is a military-themed scrolling shooter developed by Dan Gorlin, published by Broderbund for the Apple II in 1982. The player assumes the role of a combat helicopter pilot and attempts to save hostages. The helicopter can face 3 directions: left, right, or forward. It may shoot at enemies in any of these directions and need not fly in the same direction it is facing. The player rescues the prisoners by first shooting one of the hostage buildings to release them, landing to allow the prisoners to board, and then getting them back to safety. See, here's your base. Land and get the hostages back to safety. Okay, now we have Castle Wolfenstein. Castle Wolfenstein is a 1981 action-adventure that was developed by Muse Software for the Apple II. And what's really cool about it, it's one of the earliest games to be based on stealth mechanics. That's pretty cool, I think. And it still lives on today on many platforms. So the game takes place during World War II. The player takes the role of an Allied prisoner who is held captive in the fictional castle of Castle Wolfenstein. After escaping, his objective is to find the Nazis' secret war plans and escape from the castle. Let's hear some of these crazy sounds now. It did have voice as well, if you want to call it that. Here we go. You can steal a German uniform and fool the guards into thinking you are one of them. Okay, yeah, one-on-one basketball. Tri-fold packaging with a cool picture of Dr. J and Larry together. It's basically just one-on-one basketball. Not necessarily what most would consider to be a great game, but for me personally, I was a huge NBA fan back in those days. Not so much anymore, but back in those days, I was a big NBA fan, a big Larry Bird fan, a big Celtics fan. So that's pretty much why I liked this one so well and played the heck out of it. Probably the most irritating thing about this game was the crowd. Every time you made a shot, here we go, listen. That's just terrible. Here we go again. Yes, it was good to have a volume control for this game. Published by Electronic Arts in 1983. And it was ported to several different other platforms. Yeah, you would have instant replay as well, which was kind of cool. At least the crowd wouldn't cheer during the instant replay. It included a 24-second clock, and even fouls were called. Yeah, I love this game just because of my love for the NBA and Larry Bird. Oh, here's a violent one. I'm surprised my parents let me play this, but they probably didn't know what was going on. But You may not even have heard of this one. It's called the Biostode. It's a fighting game by Mark Goodman for the Apple II, published by DataMost in 1982. And the Biostode allows a human player to fight against either a computer-controlled opponent or another human. One can also pit two robots against each other. Movement in combat is accomplished with keyboard, pressing keys to swing the gladiator's axe or shield outwards and inwards, or to make the gladiator turn, stop, walk, run. Players can lop off their opponent's shields or sword arms and dispatch them by decapitation. It was pretty violent. Players progress through levels by successfully defeating their opponent. The highest level is called Master. The combat arena is a small island, maps of which are shown off to the right. Scattered around the arena are various objects, including yin and yang discs, which players can stand on to accelerate their movement, stars that transport players to other points in the arena. The game offers more strategic variation than many fighting games, letting the player to even run away and be chased around the island. And the musical soundtrack was by Beethoven. Here's some sounds. You can see the blood. This was pretty violent for games back in those days. The sounds were actually pretty good for this game as well, compared to many other games. So you each start on different sides of the island, and you hunt each other down. And then you start hacking away. He's a goner. Bolo, maybe another game you've never heard of? This was a pretty simple game, but it was really fun. It was written in 1982 by Synergistic Software for the Apple II. Upon startup, Bolo requests a level number 1 through 9 and a density number 1 through 5. The game then randomly generates a rectangular maze containing 6 enemy bases. The higher the density specified, the more walls that will appear in the maze. The player controls a tank and must destroy the 6 enemy bases to advance to the next level. Enemy tanks constantly emerge from each of the 6 enemy bases. Different levels feature different types of enemy tanks. Some move randomly while others pursue the player. All enemy tanks fire deadly shells. If the player collides with a bullet, or an enemy base, or tank, or even a wall, you lose a turn. A turn is also lost if the player runs out of fuel. Destroying an enemy base will replenish the player's fuel supply. The player is provided with 4 tanks per game, and there's no other opportunity to earn more. Once all 6 enemy bases are destroyed, the player is presented with a congratulatory message, and a new maze is generated. The player can turn the tank's gun and gun turret with 1 and 2 keys. which is a necessity in more advanced levels as enemies give chase as fast as a player's tank can move. So just like pretty much all other games, it gets more difficult as you advance. Looks pretty simple, but it was really fun. One of the cool things I really liked about this game is the explosion from one tank can destroy another tank, as you can see in some of the video. In fact, I think here you'll see a tank explode and blow up the whole base. So here's one that everybody should know about, I believe. Load Runner. Boy, my box is in bad shape. Anybody have a new box out there? I need to replace that box. That's embarrassing. Anyway, Load Runner is a 2D puzzle platform game developed by Doug Smith and published by Broderbund in 1983. The player basically controls a stick figure who must collect all the gold in a level while avoiding guards who try to catch the player. After collecting all the gold, the player must reach the top of the screen to reach the next level. What's crazy is there's 150 levels in this game. Levels have a multi-story brick platform with ladders and suspended hand-to-hand bars that offer multiple ways to travel. Guards can also pick up gold bars by running over them. Should a guard be carrying a gold bar, when he falls into a hole, he will drop it and the player can pick it up. Holes dug by the player fill themselves in after a short delay. A trapped guard who cannot escape a hole before it fills in is consumed, immediately respawning in a random location at the top of the level. Here's some sounds, pretty basic sounds. Some floors may contain trap doors, which the player and guards can both fall through. There are some solid areas of the floor considered bedrock that the player cannot dig. The player starts with 5 lives. Each level completion awards an extra life. Should a guard catch the player, 1 life is subtracted and the current level restarts. So yeah, there you go. When it comes to my earliest computer gaming experiences and memories, those 8 titles are the ones that do it for me. What about you guys? Tell me in the comments below, what are your earliest memories? It doesn't have to be from the Apple II computer, it can be from any computer gaming system or home console system. So yeah, I'd love to hear more from you guys. Let me know in the comments below. Hey, and thanks for watching this video, and hopefully there's more to come. See you next time.